Okay, so this story I'm about to tell you guys is honestly super weird. And I'm not gonna lie to you, the way this ended up happening just made me really uncomfortable. And mom and dad, if you guys are watching this, I just want to apologize. I did not know that this girl was going to do this. But before we get into this, make sure you guys do leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Seriously, it means a lot when you guys do. And on top of that, why wouldn't you want to subscribe? These stories get crazier and more unbelievable the more we tell them. So please just click that subscribe button and maybe I will get special help. Please. Anyways, let's just jump straight into this. Anyways, what is going on, you guys? My name's Bubba, and welcome back to a super embarrassing story. So today's story takes place back in my high school year, and this was my grade 12 year. Now, in grade 12, I had a girlfriend. I was dating this girl, and me and her, we were together for almost a year. I say almost a year. We didn't make it to a year, because let's just say after graduation, things didn't really end up working out, but that's not the point. Going on, I remember I was dating this girl, and me and her, we were really close to the point where she would stay at my place a lot, and her staying at my place a lot led to her leaving things and even got to a point where she left a toothbrush. Now, if you guys don't know the toothbrush rule, basically, if a girl leaves a toothbrush at your place, for all the guys watching, or I guess the other way around works too, that usually means that you guys are like linked. Like, it is like almost saying the words, I love you. Leaving like a toothbrush is insane. It's like when a girl gets one of your hoodies, boys. Like, it's just a big deal. So anyways, me being really close to her led to us doing a lot of things together and basically almost living together. My parents were kind of annoyed with it because I'm not gonna lie, my parents weren't the biggest fans of my high school relationships, which I don't blame them. Like, once you get to a point in my life where you have like 142 bodies, and no, I do not mean dead bodies, by the way. I meant bodies that I literally like just like decided to like. Anyways, I remember one time my parents sat me down for dinner and my girlfriend wasn't over, but she was gonna come like later on. She was just on a work shift. And I remember my parents sat me down for dinner and we were talking about how, you know, maybe I should try to save up money and move out. Now, my parents wanting me to move out was kind of weird. And I ended up asking them saying, why would you want me to move out? Son, you're getting really big now and you have a woman with you all the time. It's kind of like very awkward for us. Mom, dad, it's not that weird. She just comes over, stays in my room and just sleeps. Like, it's not that big of a deal. Bubba, we know what you do in there. Mom, dad, it's not that big of a deal. I kind of get where my parents were coming from because let's be real here. If you had a son or daughter that was bringing, you know, people home and doing the devil's tango, it kind of makes sense that they would be kind of, well, annoyed. So I remember from there, I ended up telling my parents how I'll stop inviting her over so much and basically talk to her about, you know, maybe, you know, spreading some time out, you know what I'm saying? But anyways, at the time when they told me about this, I remember I did get pretty upset though, because obviously like this was my girlfriend. This was the girl that like I love, you know what I mean? Like obviously for me, like her coming over was a big deal. So I remember I ended up getting up really upset at the dinner table and I ended up just eating dinner in my room. I was eating dinner in my room, talking to my girlfriend over the phone, and I was just talking to her about, you know, like, you know, her and her work shift, and I didn't really want to think about what my parents were talking to me about. But then I remember later on throughout the day, I want to say like late at night, she ended up coming over at my house around 9 p.m. Now, when my girlfriend at the time would come home from work or come to my place after work, she would be totally exhausted. She would be so exhausted to the point where she doesn't want to talk to anyone. She just wants to go straight to the room and pass out. But for some reason, this night specifically, she was really like energized and she was actually like feeling really good. Anyways, I remember when my girlfriend came over after, she was pretty exhausted, and then I remember she decided to go straight to the bathroom and get ready to take a shower. And me, I remember right as my girlfriend came through the door, my parents were like kind of giving her that annoyed look, like, oh, like you're here again, which I'm not gonna lie, really made me upset. So I ended up basically talking to my parents in the living room as my girlfriend was going upstairs and basically like, you know, getting ready to take a shower. Now, when I went to go talk to my parents, I remember I was telling them how like, you know, don't give her that snarky look, like it's not fair. She's like the love of my life. Like, you guys need to respect her and stuff like that. But then my parents said how maybe she was getting too comfortable being here all the time. And right as I tell my parents, mom, dad, there's no way she's getting that comfortable. Like, she knows the boundaries. My girlfriend at the time ended up coming downstairs from the bathroom with only a towel on and asking me, Bubba, do you want to join me in the shower? You know how embarrassing that was? In front of my parents, bro. Like, imagine your girlfriend or boyfriend ended up butt naked and basically asking you to do the devil's tango in the shower. Like, that's how embarrassing it was. And I remember I looked at her and said, babe, like, you should go back upstairs. And right as she turns around, bloop, her towel drops. So my girlfriend is butt naked, not wearing anything in front of my parents. Literally, my girlfriend flashed my parents, and instead of picking up the towel right away, she decides to like get the towel and just cover up her front area, and she starts running upstairs with her peach jiggling like Oh my goodness, bro. It was so embarrassing. And I remember I didn't know what to say. I didn't know what to do. And honestly, everything that my parents were talking to me about earlier that day in the dinner table, they were right about. And at that point, I remember I had to give her a talk that night about how maybe there's got to be more boundaries and how maybe we should start going to her place more. Yeah, let's just say it led to a lot of arguments, but what can I say? That relationship was done and over with anyway. Anyways, guys, that is basically it for today's story. Make sure you guys do leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And like I always say, just follow for more embarrassing but crazy stories. Peace out, guys. I remember she ended up entering the boys' cabin, and out of nowhere, she ended up looking at all of us saying, "What, you never seen a girl in here before? Well, how about this?" And she ends up showing her cherries to the entire cabin full of guys just to get my attention. Yo, what is going on, you guys? My name's Bubba, and welcome back to a super embarrassing but crazy story. Now, today's story all takes place back in my grade 7 year. Now, in grade 7, I was in middle school, and honestly, I was just a basic kid. I never paid attention to anyone. I only did my own thing. And if I'm gonna be honest, the only thing I actually really did care about was playing video games, because that's the only thing I enjoyed. For all those people back then that played Call of Duty Black Ops 2, you guys know what I'm talking about. But going on with the story, I remember it was the summer of my grade 7 year, and basically I was going into grade 8 and I was super excited, but for some reason my parents in my grade 7 year decided to make me learn an instrument. I don't know what it is with parents trying to see talent come out of their children, but I'll tell you one thing, I wasn't really that talented. So me and my parents, knowing this, they ended up deciding to make me take an instrument and basically learn an instrument that I could be talented at. And out of all the instruments that are out there, they ended up making me choose the worst one, and that was the clarinet. Now, honestly, I hate the clarinet. Like, for all those SpongeBob fans out there, okay, my nose is already big enough. I did not need to become Squidward and play the clarinet. But I remember one day coming home from clarinet practice, my parents ended up always asking me, "Oh, Bubba, did you learn anything? Bubba, did you learn how to play a song?" And I kept telling them no, because I'm gonna be honest, I was terrible at playing the clarinet. No matter how many lessons I got, for some reason, I could just not learn it. So I remember one day when I came home from hanging out with my friends, my parents were sitting in the living room, and I went and said hi to them, and they said to me, "Bubba, can you sit down with us for a second?" I sat down with them, and that's when my mom ended up telling me, "Bubba, we're going to be sending you to band camp." Band camp? What is this, a Nickelodeon TV show? Why am I going to band camp? "Bubba, don't worry, it'll be fun, and you'll learn how to play an instrument with all the other kids." At that moment, I got so annoyed, because not only did I not know how to play the clarinet or play any instrument at that matter, they ended up basically making me go to a camp where it's full of nerds that knew how to play instruments. At that moment, I was super annoyed, but I remember as the next couple of weeks went on, my parents ended up sending me to band camp. And no joke, when the bus came to pick me up, I was regretting walking on there so much. I remember when I got on the bus, I ended up seeing a lot of kids that actually went to my high school, and all of them were, well, nobodies. But then there was one person in the back of the bus that I recognized that actually went to my elementary school. So I went and sat beside him, and we caught up on a bunch of things. Like, for example, he told me about how he started to play guitar, how he still plays video games, and how a lot of the kids in band camp are actually pretty cool. At first, I did not believe him whatsoever, but when we finally arrived at camp, in the middle of nowhere, by the way, we ended up getting our things, and we ended up heading to our cabins that we would stay in. Now, in band camp, there's two separate cabins that you would stay at. There was the girls' cabin, and there was the guys' cabin. So I guess you guys wouldn't understand where I went, and that was the guys' cabin. And no, by the way, there is no she, they, them cabin, okay? It was just guys and girls, okay? It's like buying an Amazon t-shirt. Like, there's only 2 sections at the time. But going on, I remember I ended up getting inside the guys' cabin, and all the guys were unpacking their instruments, unpacking all their clothes, and me, I was doing the same thing. And then right as we heard the bell for all of us to meet up at the front of the campsite. So when we all ran out there, I remember there was a lot of us. Like, there was over 40 people attending this band camp. And as we were all like basically lining up in a giant group, I started to notice there was one girl from the girls' cabin that kept staring at me. For some reason, there was this girl that was like a total nerd, and she just kept looking at me weird, and honestly, it made me super uncomfortable, to the point where I looked at my friend and said, "Yo, who's the girl that keeps staring me down as if she wants to kill me?" "Oh, bro, that's actually a girl that got kicked out of the middle school. I don't know what she did, but apparently she's like really good at the drums, but she's kind of crazy." "Huh, okay. Why is she staring at me though?" "Oh no, she's probably interested in you or something. My opinion, stay away from her." I remember I got super super weirded out, and I decided to do exactly what my friend told me and to stay away. A couple days went on, and I remember there would be really weird random moments throughout the day where I would be sitting with my friends or hanging out with the guys, and the girl would always still just stare at me randomly. It made me super uncomfortable, and there was this one specific moment where I remember it was lunchtime and we were all eating our food at our table groups, and no joke, she stood up as she was staring at me and decided to walk up to me. But as she was walking up to me, I remember our team captain, or basically the adult that was watching over everyone at band camp, ended up walking up to us and asked me, "So Bubba, did you learn a lot about the clarinet?" And I just looked at her super awkwardly, because I'm not gonna lie, even me being at band camp, I still did not know anything about the clarinet. But after that whole situation, it made her, the creepy girl that would always stare at me, walk away. Now, there were many moments where things happened like that, and there was this one specific moment that almost freaked me out, because I remember there was a day in band camp where we all decided to go to the lake. It was basically a rest day from playing the instruments all week. We ended up all going to the lake, and we all started playing games like volleyball and tennis and flew a kite. Like, we did a bunch of different activities. And as I was playing volleyball with me and my friends, I remember this girl kept staring me down, and she actually ended up walking up to me. She walked up to me and said, "Hey, so like, you're that guy that plays the clarinet, right?" "Yeah, hi, my name's Bubba." "Hi, well, I just want to say, like, I think you're like really cool." Thanks. Yeah. As we were having that super weird conversation, no joke, my buddy ends up running up to me and he says, "Yo, Bubba, you gonna pass the ball or what, bro? Why are you talking to this girl? Come on, let's get out of here. Girls have cooties." And me and my buddy, we ended up going back and playing volleyball. Now, that was the only interaction I thought I was gonna have with her. But let's just say later that night, things got really creepy. Because I remember at night, we ended up all heading to our cabins and we basically got ready for bed. I ended up getting all my things put together, and then that's when it happened. I ended up hearing rocks hitting my window that was right beside my bed, and I didn't know what was going on. And then after a while, lights ended up going out and all the guys were laying down getting ready to sleep. Me, I was laying down as well, but once again, I heard more rocks hitting my window. I ended up opening the window and I ended up looking around to see what was going on, until out of the bushes came this girl that was talking to me earlier. She looks at me and says, "Hey, like, we didn't finish our conversation. What are you doing here? What? It's late." "Yeah, I know. Here, let me in." And I remember she ends up crawling through the window and she looks at me saying, "Bubba, like, I was just wondering, can I get your number?" "What? I don't have my phone on me. I didn't bring it with me to camp." And that's when it happened. I remember one of the boys ended up waking up that was near the light switch. He ended up turning on the lights and saying, "Yo, what? Why is there a girl in here? Guys, there's a girl inside the cabin." I remember everyone started to wake up and just start staring at this girl as if they'd never seen a woman before in their life, which, I mean, to be fair, they might have never at that point, but still, they were like in total shock. And I look at this girl and I'm like, "Yo, I think you should get out of here." And then this girl ends up doing the most craziest thing ever, when she looks over at everyone and says, "What, you guys have never seen a girl before? I bet you guys have never seen these before." And she ends up whipping out her cherries in the middle of the cabin while all the guys were staring. No joke, all the guys started to freak out as if like it was their first pair of cherries they've ever seen. Well, actually, it definitely was, but still, like, it was so awkward and super weird. And I remember I looked at the girl and said, "Yo, like, what are you doing?" I ended up giving her my t-shirt and I put it on her and I ended up walking her outside my cabin. When we went out the front door, she ended up looking at me saying, "So I was just wondering, can I still get your number?" And that's when I told her she was absolutely crazy and to please not ever talk to me again. You guys probably thought me and her did the devil's tango, but I am not gonna do it with a girl that literally showed her cherries to the entire cabin full of guys. Like, that's like doing a girl that did the whole entire football team. And if you guys would never do it with a girl like that, then fall for more embarrassing stories just like this one. Peace out, guys. I remember this girl ends up finishing her speech and she ended up taking off her shirt in front of the entire school and everyone saw her cherries. Bro, this girl just flashed the entire school. Yo, what is going on, you guys? My name's Bubba and welcome back to another really embarrassing story. So this story all takes place back when I was in high school and this was my grade 10 year. Now in grade 10, one thing I had a lot of was sneaky links. If you guys don't know what sneaky links are, basically it would be women that I would meet up with randomly throughout the week to go do the devil's tango. And one thing I will say is that I had like more than like 7 of them, so it was really hard to keep track of things. But obviously there was one sneaky link back when I was in high school that was very iconic to me because this girl did the most iconic thing ever. But before we get into that, I remember one day in my grade 10 year, I was basically walking down the school hallway and I ended up seeing my sneaky link. And when I saw her, I remember she ran up to me and she looked at me and said, "Hey Bubba, I was just wondering, after school today, are you free?" Yeah, I'm free. Why?" "Okay, well, I was thinking, do you want to like maybe like meet up and like, I don't know, go back to your place?" minutes. At this moment, I knew what she was asking. She obviously wanted to come over and do the Devil's Tango. So I ended up replying, yeah, sure. After school, just meet up with me at the front. And I ended up walking away. Now, when I walked away, I remember I was pretty excited because obviously, like, you know, I had someone scheduled in. And I say that really oddly as if I'm a doctor. But at the same time, the only thing I was good at being a doctor for was doing the Devil's Tango. But going on with the story, I remember later on that day when after school actually came around, I ended up going to the front of the school and I waited there for, I want to say like 20 minutes. And it got to the point where I waited there for over 40 minutes and she still didn't show up. I was obviously really upset and I just basically ended up, you know, texting her saying, yo, like, are we not meeting up? Like, what's going on? And I ended up walking home by myself. I want to say like an hour went by and basically she ended up texting me out of nowhere saying, oh, I'm so sorry. I was so busy with stuff and I had a leadership meeting and honestly, like, something came up and I just got really upset. Oh, okay, well, do you want to let off some steam and come over? You know what? That's actually not a bad idea. And then one thing led to another. She actually ended up coming over to my place. Now, when she came over, I thought she was just going to complain about, like, you know, how some kids were just being really dumb in leadership class or some disagreement happened during class. But clearly she had other things in mind because I remember when she came over, after me and her, we did the Devil's Tango. I remember I ended up picking up my clothes from the ground and I started putting my shirt on. But halfway through putting on my t-shirt, I remember she looks at me and says, Baba, do you think like women should be able to like walk around shirtless? Wait, what? Well, like, you know, like not have to wear anything and just walk around. I ended up looking at her as if she was crazy and I ended up saying, oh, well, I mean, wouldn't that not be appropriate for your cherries? Like, you know, what do you mean it's not appropriate? Women and men are literally the same thing. At this point, I didn't really know what to say because obviously I didn't want to debate with her on this, but at the same time, like it kind of felt weird for her to ask me this question. So I ended up looking at her and said, well, if I'm being honest, like personally, I don't know if it's appropriate for women to do that. I feel like personally it's not, but I mean, it's all up to you at the end of the day. I don't really know. I don't think anyone's gonna complain. And I think me saying that was the biggest mistake ever because afterwards she ended up smiling and nodding her head towards me saying, oh, I know what I have to do. And at this point, I knew it was all downhill from there. Because the next day when I got to school, I remember there were so many girls outside of the school not wearing t-shirts and were yelling basically free the cherries. And it was really embarrassing. And I remember a lot of guys actually ended up cheering with them just because they ended up getting to see a free pair of cherries. Now, I'm not one to argue with politics and basically, you know, get in the way of people that want to riot about different things. But this was a little extreme, especially for high school. I remember halfway through the school day on the announcements, we ended up getting an announcement saying, to all the students outside wearing not appropriate attire or not wearing anything at all, please put on some clothing and enter the school. If you are not, you will be kicked out of the school for the day. Thank you. And I remember so many girls in the school, and I literally heard this from the hallway, started yelling and screaming even more. Now, it got to the point where, I'm not gonna lie, a lot of girls actually ended up leaving school that day, especially a lot of the leadership students that were women. And it was pretty obvious to me that the girl that I was, you know, doing the Devil's Tango with definitely had something to do with it. Now, I want to say a couple weeks went by and obviously things started to die down because, well, students, or especially girl students, started to realize that they weren't able to attend school if they kept going on this way. So a lot of girls ended up basically going back to normal and putting on their clothing and basically entering school again. But as for my sneaky link, well, she had other things in mind because what she did next, I gotta say, was extremely illegal. I remember after 2 weeks, we ended up getting an announcement where basically it was for a spirit assembly that was happening the next day on a Friday. And basically everyone in the school loves spirit assemblies. It's basically where everyone shows their school spirit and school pride and basically get together and show how much we love our school. But one thing that a lot of people did not know about the spirit assembly was that it was hosted by leadership students. So obviously, I think you guys know where I was going with this, but basically I remember the next day came around and the spirit assembly started and a lot of students, you know, started all cheering. We had mascots and it was really exciting. We had like little fun games and stuff, and all the teachers were just sitting on the side of the gymnasium just kind of watching us students do our thing. But then out of nowhere, I remember my sneaky link that was a leadership student ended up walking in front of the school, and she walked up to the front of the mic and said, hello parents, student, and teachers. Today we are all going to stand up and rise to show how powerful students are in this school. And for all the women in front of me right now, I want you guys to know we are able to be free. At this point, everyone was looking around wondering what does she mean by women being free. And at this moment, I remember out of nowhere, And I mean it. Like, it was insane because this girl, she ends up ripping off her shirt and throwing it across towards the teachers. And she starts yelling, shaking her cherry, saying, "Free the cherries." And I am not joking. Everyone in the school stood up and started cheering because this girl just flashed the entire school. Honestly, all of us were mind blown. And I remember a lot of guys started to get bricked and a lot of people started just, staring. And it even got to a point where our principal ended up grabbing his coat and putting it on top of the girl that was flashing the entire school. Obviously, it got to the point where everyone started freaking out. And I am not joking. Like, it became havoc because once one girl started to do it, other leadership students started to do it. And it got really messy to the point where the cops were actually involved. Cops ended up pulling up in front of the school. And actually, funny enough, the leadership student that actually ended up taking off her shirt in front of the whole school, my sneaky link at the time, she full on got arrested and went to a prison. Yeah, she went to prison, bro. Like, what? But obviously, during the entire thing going on, though, I remember it was so funny how the teachers were all trying to like grab the students that were taking off their clothing and trying to make them put it back on. And I gotta say this, for high school, it was majorly embarrassing. As for me, well, I was just sitting there kind of amazed and freaked out. And honestly, the amount of kids that got footage that day of, her doing that was insane because I remember it was the talk of this school for the rest of the year. Like, everyone would not stop talking about that event and what happened. And I got to the point where I'm not gonna lie, the girl actually ended up getting expelled, but it was definitely a day to remember for all high school students that were in my school that year. But I want you guys to be completely honest with me. What would you guys do in that moment? Would you guys also take your shirts off, or would you guys put it back on and just act normal? I don't know. Comment down below, but like I always say, just fall for more embarrassing stories just like this one. Peace out, guys.